I will fight till the end.
Good afternoon and welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. Welcome to our weekly call-in town hall, and I'm State Senator Amanda Chase, your weekly radio show host. The district that I serve includes all of Colonial Heights, Amelia, and most of Chesterfield, and I'm really glad you're tuning in today. You know, I also would like to thank WNTW 820 AM The Answer for the opportunity to provide this public service to you each week free. So if you have a question about today's topic, I invite you to call in. It is a call-in show, right? So you have to call in. The number is 804-454-1366. We will do our best to answer your questions on the show. If you have an issue or a concern, feel free to reach out to my office as well. We understand that not everybody likes to call in. Some of you are a little shy out there, but hopefully you'll get over that. I'm still in my office each Tuesday and Thursday, even out of session. My contact information is on my website, amandachaseforsenate.com. And the purpose of this town hall is to provide constituents an opportunity to learn about what's really going on in their state government, unfiltered. It's an opportunity for me to listen to you and hear what concerns you have so I can carry those issues back to Richmond. And, I know many of you, whenever I was running for office, said a lot of times legislators are out of touch with what real people are going through. And as you all know, I have 4 kids. I'm very in touch with what real people are going through because I live it and I get it. So we're all part-time legislators with life outside the annual winter session, which takes place at our state's capital in Richmond, Virginia, on the second Wednesday of every January. You can count on it. Every year, the second Wednesday of every January. And it runs 60 days in even years and 45 days in odd years. As many of you know who've listened to my show before, I'm a wife, mother of 4, and my family has owned various businesses. And we're still busy when we're out of session, but we are busiest during these winter months when we focus on passing laws. So during the rest of the year, what do? We go back to our jobs and our families, but continue to help constituents with issues that come out throughout the year. We also attend many community events, parades, and meetings to stay in touch with the people that voted us in office. Now, if you live in the district and would like for me to come to speak to your group, please give my office a call, and I do try to meet. I've met with Boy Scout groups. I have met with Ruritans, chambers, you name it. And I will tell you, one thing that I love about this, it's very different from legislators in D.C. I was talking to Dave Bratt this morning, Congressman Dave Bratt, who's in D.C. And in fact, I was calling to see if he was available to join us on the show, and he's probably going to be on the air with me next month. But he's in D.C. right now, and they work year-round trying to pass legislation. I'm so glad that I'm only there for 3 months, and the rest of the time I get to be in the district and stay in touch with what my constituents are going through. As your state senator, my office is in Richmond at our state capitol, where I have office hours each week out of session on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as I mentioned earlier. And in fact, many of the issues that we discuss on Cut to the Chase each week come from meeting with my constituents. In fact, I got a constituent call at like 11 o'clock last night, somebody texting me about sanctuary cities. So we hope that you will tune in each Thursday to our weekly town hall to find out what hot issues are in our area. And so it's good to be back here with you today. This is my second Thursday back on Cut to the Chase since completing our short or 46-day 2017 legislative session. As many of you know, from Wednesday, January the 11th, through Saturday, February the 25th, 46 days, so quiz, this is a short session, right? My legislative colleagues and I meet in Richmond, and that's where we read, review, discuss, and debate thousands of bills. Even in the short session, we have thousands of bills. Now, the bills that passed both the House and the Senate are now on the governor's desk waiting to be signed. On Wednesday, April the 5th, write that down on your calendar, we're going to be back in Richmond when we reconvene. And this is where we have the opportunity to override any governor vetoes with 2/3 of the vote, which will be difficult, quite honestly, in the Senate with a 21-19 split, 21 Republicans, 19 Democrats. But the governor also has the opportunity to offer amendments to our bills, and we get to vote those amendments up or down. Now, I'm going to talk to you about some amendments that I hope the governor will offer. And, last year I worked with the governor on passing a bipartisan reciprocity gun bill that basically restored reciprocity for your gun rights. So you got to keep those. And so I'm very hopeful that he's going to work with me on this too, and he already is. So let's cut to the chase here. One such bill that I hope the governor offers amendments for is our coal ash Senate Bill 1398, patroned by Senator Scott Servell and myself. If you've listened to our show, you know that the Chesterfield Power Plant is located just up the street here from our radio studio here in Chester, and that it's been in the news quite a bit lately. As many of you know, because you listen to the show regularly, and we've done 2 complete shows on coal ash, but for the past 50 plus years, this plant has produced electricity for much of our area. And this, of course, is critical because we rely on electricity each and every day to power our homes, our businesses, and let's face it, nobody likes it when the power goes out for a storm or extended period of time with a hurricane. In fact, this week, my hot water heater went out, and I was not happy. But I'm glad it's fixed. So we get used to these comforts in life, and one of those is electricity. It's become a way of life that we count on to remain productive individuals. It's also imperative that this electricity is affordable and reliable, as we discussed on 2 radio shows last year, that Virginia actually has, on the whole East Coast, the most affordable electricity, and we want to thank Dominion for that. Unfortunately, however, a byproduct called coal ash is also produced, and I have actually been to the Chesterfield Power Plant on multiple occasions and have actually arranged multiple tours with you, some of constituents who are very interested in this and brought this to my attention. And I've seen the mounds of coal ash. We now have 50 years worth of coal ash sitting in unlined coal ash ponds right alongside the James River next to Henricus Park. And guess what? It is a public park here in Chester. People canoe, swim, and ski in the James River, and it is important that we ensure the public safety of the water in and around this area. It's a bipartisan issue. I'm a mom. I like clean water for my kids to play in, and we've had boats, and wish we had one now, but we don't. But both the park and the power plant, they're next door neighbors. The question is, what do we do with the football field size mounds of coal ash? Our society is dependent on electricity, but what do we do with all of this coal ash? It's everywhere, and if you were there and saw these mounds, they're really tall. They're probably 3 stories tall. So we leave the coal ash in the ground, and where has it been for decades? Do we leave it in the ground where it's been for decades? Do we cap it and seal it in place with a synthetic liner and put turf on top of it? Or do we excavate and rail or truck the coal ash out? And I've been trying to get to the bottom of this question for over a year now, and facilitating this discussion between Dominion and the James River Association and constituents in my district who are very concerned about this. One particular concern that we have is at the current location of the Chesterfield coal ash, where it sits. It sits in a 100-year floodplain next to the James River and what used to be, get this, the path of the James River. The ponds are also not lined, which is my second concern. The question for me, and I'm not a scientist, full disclaimer, my background is finance, but are the metals leaching into the ground? What is involved with transferring the coal ash into a lined facility that already accepts coal ash, which, by the way, in the other part of my district, in Amelia County, they actually have a facility there that accepts coal ash from North Carolina. So I'm very interested in visiting that facility and have arrangements to do so now that session is out. So what do we do? Do we try to reduce the cost of excavation by recycling the coal ash? There's so many unanswered questions that need to be answered before we make the decision to move forward with an action that will be passed on ultimately to you, the ratepayer, That's what the State Corporation Commission allows Dominion to do. So Senate Bill 1398 is a bill first introduced by Senator Scott Survell, and I give him so much credit for this. I mean, he's a super smart attorney, and I'm so thankful that he brought this to my attention. But it calls for a review and evaluation of coal ash ponds before they close their coal ash ponds in 2020, which, by the way, is a mandate by the federal EPA. The bill basically requires that a study and evaluation be done before we cap and seal the coal ash. Stay tuned. We're going to finish talking about the coal ash ponds and legislation, Senate Bill 1398. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, and it's great to be back. And we are talking about the 2017 legislative session. I'm currently talking to you about Senate Bill 1398, introduced by Senator Scott Survell, and later I came on as a co-patron and to show support for the bill. It's an evaluation of coal ash ponds before they close their coal ash ponds in 2020, which is a mandate, as I was mentioning earlier, by the federal EPA. The bill basically requires that a study and evaluation be done before we cap and seal the coal ash into these unlined coal ash ponds. And as I mentioned earlier, the State Corporation Commission actually allows Dominion to recoup this cost through the ratepayer. So, I'm a parent of 4 kids. And anything that's going to be passed on to the ratepayer, I think it's important we get this right the first time. I don't like to have to pay for things more than once. So anyway, so the bill, Senate Bill 1398, it passed out of the Senate on a 29-11 vote. The bill requires the owner or operator of a coal combustion residuals unit within the Chesapeake Bay watershed to identify water pollution and address corrective measures to resolve it, evaluate the clean closure. We're just going to call it the CCR unit, so I don't have to say all that, okay? By recycling the coal ash for use in cement or moving it to a landfill. We want them to demonstrate the long-term safety of the unit, and the bill also requires that the owner or operator transmit a report on its progress to the Department of Environmental Quality. That's the state agency that regulates Dominion and these other energies that produce our power. And other agencies or legislative committees, they would have until January 1st of 2018. The bill prohibits the director of DEQ from delaying the issuance of a permit to close any CCR unit pending the completion of the assessment. So, after crossover, this bill passed out of the House, but with a substitute that basically allowed Dominion to proceed with capping and sealing the coal ash ponds in place while they compiled the study. The substitute states that, quote unquote, notwithstanding the provisions of this act, the director of this is a whole mouthful, director of the Department of Environmental Quality, I'm just going to call it the DEQ, shall not suspend, delay, or defer the issuance of any permit to provide for the closure of any CCR unit pending the completion by the owner or operator of the assessment of the unit required by the first enactment of this act. In deciding whether to issue any such permit, the director need not, get this, the director need not include or rely upon his review of any such assessment. Okay, all of this technicalities here. Let me just cut to the chase for you, right? They're saying that the director does not have to rely on the review of the assessment. So what's the point of doing the assessment? I mean, what's the point of this whole bill if you're going to gut it with a substitute like that? All right, I'm not going to get worked up. Compare that to the original bill, which states that the director shall issue no draft permit to provide for the closure of any CCR unit until he has reviewed and evaluated the complete assessments and all comments received relating to that CCR unit. Okay, that's the original bill. So the original bill says you've got to look at these evaluations. You have to take into account public comment. The House substitute also takes out the public comment period, which you all know as a co-founder of the Transparency Caucus. It's very important to me that we include the public and constituents when we're making decisions like this, especially when it has to do with ratepayers and increasing cost. In the original bill, it states that the director shall hold a comment period of not less than 45 days seeking public comment on the completed assessments. If DCR has any commentary on or evaluation of the assessment, DCR shall provide it to the department by the end of the comment period. Okay, so did you hear that? The House substitute cut out the public comment period. How is that transparent? Why did the House cut out the public comment period? Well, I definitely have my thoughts on that. But I will say that the bill passed out of the House with a substitute offered by the Agriculture, Chesapeake, and Natural Resources chairman and passed out of the House with this terrible substitute on a 98 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstention. And I tell you, I was very vocal at the subcommittee and the regular committee meetings. Senator Serval and I are not happy about the substitute that Dominion provided to the substitute chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. It was Delegate Orrock, and he accepted it, and the committee approved that substitute even after we expressed that it was not a friendly amendment. Even after explaining in subcommittee and again before the full committee that this amendment basically gutted the whole purpose of the bill, I told them that you all would not be happy with this, by the way. The chairman still proceeded with the unfriendly substitute. And now Senator Serval and I have asked the governor for amendments to return the intent and purpose of the original bill back to what it was when it passed out of the Senate. So I'm very hopeful that we're successful on April the 5th with these amendments that the governor's office offers, and we're working on them even this week. So when we return, I want to fill you in on potential cost of coal ash removal and what potential increases this could result in on your power bill. You know, I'm all about giving people information so they can make an educated and informed decision. Let's get all the information out there and talk to our constituents and say, what do you think? So we're talking about what do we do with football fields worth of coal ash? Do we simply leave it in place, cap it and seal it in place? The cost to seal in place was roughly $1.5 million. That's the cost for simply leaving the coal ash in the ground, capping the mound with a thick synthetic plastic-like material, and covering the ash. Now, keep in mind the ponds would remain unlined. But there's also an alternative option. We could completely excavate the coal ash and truck the coal ash out at a much higher cost. Previous estimates to completely excavate the coal ash and relocate it to a lined facility could cost, and now sit down for this one, $3 billion. And that did not even include full removal, which certainly could increase consumer cost. A $3 billion investment would have resulted in about a 4% increase in your bill. And we're also talking about a lot of time. Full removal would take about 15 years. So, to excavate the coal ash out of the unlined ponds and rail the coal ash out would cost even more than $3 billion. So on the break, I want you to think about this. Would you completely excavate the coal ash from the unlined coal ash ponds if it meant your power bill went up by 4%? That's $4 for every $100. I want to know your thoughts when we come back.
I will fight to the end.
State Senator Amanda Chase here, taking your phone calls. Give me a call at 804-454-1366. And I want to know if you would be willing for every $100 you have to pay for your electricity bill, would you be willing to pay $4 if you knew that the coal ash would be completely excavated from these unlined coal ash ponds that are sitting in an unlined, as we said, unlined coal ash pond next to the James River? So if you have a thought or comment, let me know. Are you okay with that? I mean, do you want to excavate this coal ash, have peace of mind, pay $4 for every $100 you have to pay? According to the Washington Post, the Office of Management and Budget has suggested deep cuts to the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency's budget. You may have seen this. This is in the Washington Post. And the plan is that they're going to reduce its staff by 1/5 in the first year and eliminate dozens of programs. Okay, so let me give you an example of what this looks like. The plan calls for a slash in the EPA staff by 20%. So their current level is 15,000. They're going to cut that all the way to 12,000. The proposal calls for cutting the agency's grants to states, including its air and water programs, by 30% and eliminating 38 separate programs in their entirety. The agency's Office of Research and Development could face a cut of up to 42%. And under Scott Pruitt's leadership, big changes are coming. How will it affect the EPA's federal mandate to clean close coal ash ponds by 2020? Certainly there's much uncertainty, in my opinion. While I understand and appreciate the concern of the state agency, the DEQ, or Department of Environmental Quality, they desire to go ahead and seal and cap the coal ash in place and continue to monitor the situation so they can comply with the federal EPA's regulation that require them to clean close by 2020. And that was much of the opposition to our bill by the House Republicans, is they wanted to make sure that we were not boxing in the DEQ. And I guess I'm looking at things with this new federal environment here under President Trump. You know, his focus is improving. You know, we've had all these cuts in our military. He is looking at spending a lot more money on our military and more interested in building our military than and cutting these other agencies. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of uncertainty here. So I would encourage you, stay tuned. We're probably not going to resolve this issue. It's going to be an issue and a topic for decades to come, because even if we do go ahead and evaluate and we're able to get these governor's amendments put on here, it's going to be a year for the evaluations to be done before they can apply for they can actually go ahead under current law, apply for the solid waste permit under the current law and continue to seek these permits to cap and seal this coal ash in place. I just think it's important that we not put the cart before the horse, and that we make sure that if we're spending your money, your ratepayers' money, that we do this once and not multiple times. I'm just saying, let's make sure we have all the data that we need, and let's also include you, the taxpayer, in on this discussion. So stay tuned, and I still would like to hear from you on this. Maybe you're okay with it. I don't know. So last week we talked about the state budget and what I consider to be the top 10 issues that came up in the General Assembly. We also discussed the first 3 issues. We're going to spend today through reconvene on April the 5th to discuss the remaining top issues of the 2017 legislative session. I want to talk to you a little bit about my bills and finally give you an update on the Transparency Caucus. And let me do that just real quick before I forget. We have increased our membership greatly. And one of the things that we've done, and you may have seen this in the paper, is that we submitted a letter to the clerks of our respective houses, so in the House and the Senate, requesting that in our next building, which they're actually, because of asbestos and some other health issues, they're actually destroying the building that our current offices are in downtown later this summer. But we'll be moving to the Pocahontas building, so I will still continue to be able to meet with you all downtown and in an office somewhere, but just stay tuned. It'll be late this summer before we move our office to the Pocahontas building. But that said, the Transparency Caucus wants to look out for you all and say that make sure that we have the ability to film our proceedings in our committee meetings and our subcommittee meetings, in addition to on the floor of the Senate, because most of the work is actually done in these subcommittee and committees. So we're putting that request. We put the letter in, and I even got the majority leader, Senator Tommy Norment, to sign off. Stay tuned. We have more to discuss. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And I am Senator Chase, your state senator, serving you all in the General Assembly. And today we are giving a quick recap of the 2017 session. And it was supposed to be a quick recap, but I'm going to actually take my time until we reconvene in April, so I can. There were so many different topics and issues that we discussed. I know last week we talked about the budget, and I'm going to recap a little bit for those of you who missed last week. But I was talking about the Transparency Caucus, and that is going really well. You know, a lot of the things that we do as legislators are legislative, obviously, because we pass laws and that's our job. But a lot of what we do is not legislative. And, you know, I've been trying to, you know, since 2009, for the past 10 years, we have seen a shift from out-of-touch politicians, because you, the people, we woke up, right? And we realized what's going on in government. And so you see with the election of Congressman Dave Brat and other folks in there, there's a shift towards citizen legislators, and I think it's great. We want increased transparency and, you know, term limits. These types of things. So one of the things that, one of the caucuses that I co-founded the second week I was in office was called the Transparency Caucus. And what we do as members at the gold level, if you will, the gold standard, is that we actually, and I do this, have an intern in my office to record me as I am presenting my bills, your bills, before these different subcommittees and committees, so that you can follow our bills, the bills that I'm chief patron of, and I've got like 12 bills that I was a chief patron of, and about 40 that I was the co-patron for. And so anyway, I video and film the proceedings and actually post them on Facebook so that you can see them. Now, wouldn't it be great if everybody did that? I think it'd be great. And most of you work, and so maybe there's a bill that's important to you, and you think, well, I have to work, so I can't go downtown. I can't participate in this and see what happened to my bill. So by videoing in the subcommittees where most of the work is done, and in the committee, you'll actually be able to see and participate later in the day, because hopefully it's recorded, and then you'll know what's going on, so you can maybe call your legislator on your break and let them know where you stand on a particular bill. And I just think, you know, I'm tired of smoke and mirrors, and I know you are too. And that's why many of you all put me here, because I'm tired of smoke and mirrors. And I think the more we have, I welcome the cameras. In fact, I had the Chesterfield Observer in here earlier today, ask if they could come in, and I'm like, fine, you know, I have nothing to hide. So, and I think we should be that way. We realized when we accepted this job that we basically live in a glass fishbowl. So we have to be transparent, and I welcome that. So we had about 60 legislators, and we all signed this bill, and Delegate Levine and myself circulated this petition amongst our colleagues, he in the House and myself in the Senate. We had over 60 legislators to sign this, and as I mentioned, I want to thank Senate Majority Leader Tommy Norment for signing this as well. And I think that's going to be very helpful to have his signature on there as well, so that when we go to the new building, that we have the capability to video and film this, so that you can participate and that we have more transparent government. So that's it. That's what we accomplished in the Transparency Caucus. And I mentioned last week, and I'm just going to briefly summarize the budget. This is not a year that we create a budget. It's a 2-year budget, so we tweak it a little bit. When we came into session, we had a $107 billion 2-year budget. When we arrived in Richmond on January 11th, we had a $1.26 million hole. That's a lot of money to have a hole for state revenues. And when we left Richmond 46 days later, we had a $107 billion 2-year budget. Now, if you remember last year, I did not vote in favor of the budget. This year I did, and here's why. We needed to reprioritize where we're spending our money and cut where we can. And there were 4 things that I lobbied for and that I got. Teachers needed a raise, not just a bonus. They got a 2% raise, so I'm very happy about that. In fact, I let them know, honestly, that I was not going to vote for that budget unless we got, number one, our teachers a raise, and that we took care of all the wage compression issues with our law enforcement, our state police, our sheriffs. No new spending, no fees, okay? And I just want to give a shout out to the Senate Republican and House leadership, because they, for us, went in and pulled out all the fees that were in there and pulled it out, because I'm an agreeable person, but give me something I can agree on, right? And I hear what you all are saying. We're tired of the increased fees, no new spending, and guess what? Our budget balanced. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So we avoided across-the-board reductions to K through 12 public education. We removed the Medicaid expansion language in there. So I feel pretty good about our budget. Last week, we talked about the budget. That was one of the top issues of session. Last week, we talked about immigration. We had a bill barring so-called sanctuary localities. I gave you my opinion on that and emphasized that we must not misdirect our compassion and compromise the safety and well-being of law-abiding citizens. You know, we're a nation of laws, and there are consequences when we or someone we love does not follow the law. We love immigrants. We are America. We are the melting pot, but the message should be clear. We have a place and process for you to come here legally, and we encourage you to go through that process. Come here legally. Other countries have a similar process, and you know what? Our country is no different. We're compassionate people, and I just want to emphasize a local case, and I don't know if you heard of this, but it was in the Richmond Times-Dispatch not too long ago about a Mexican immigrant sentenced to 14 years for molesting 2 girls. He was here illegally from Mexico. And after he was accused of molesting 2 Chesterfield County girls, he returned 2 years later after paying $8,000, only to be smuggled back across the border, and he was sentenced to serve 14 years for the assaults. Very sad situation. I'm a mom of 4 kids, so these really get me upset, you know. So age 9 and 11 years old. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We have more to discuss. I think it's the final 5 minutes of Cut to the Chase. Stay tuned. I can't believe it's already the last 5 minutes of our show, Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. There's so much that I have to share with you. I was gone for 46 days, and to pick the top 10 issues is tough. And we were talking about immigration, and I sit on local governments, and I sit on the Transportation Committee, and we heard bills of very impassioned speakers that came forward, and they were talking about, we need to give driver's license to people who are not here legally, who are not documented. And if you didn't hear last week's issue, I went into a lot of detail that these driver's license actually look identically the same, whether you're an immigrant who is here legally. I mean, a lot of my friends who are here legally are saying, we followed the law. We did the right thing. And some people are wanting to do this and not follow the law. How is that fair? I mean, localities should not create safe havens for people who are not following the law. That's in my mind what it comes down to. The locality should follow the law and do everything in its power to promote and protect the safety of its citizens. It doesn't make sense to me that a locality would say, hey, it's okay not to follow the law. Come to our city and live here. We're going to protect you. We're a nation of laws, and there are consequences when someone we love does not follow the law. Yes, as I said earlier, we love immigrants, but got to come here legally. So we also talked about Airbnb last week. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but listen last week. And we also talked about redistricting reform. There is a big push right now to change our lines. Legislatively, it's being challenged right now. And then we talked today about coal ash. Boy, we've got so many other issues I want to talk about. We want to continue to talk about the opioid crisis, felons' voting rights, explicit school materials, guns for military folks who have served in the military and allowing them to be able to carry, school suspensions, giving, depending on whether you're the school systems in the localities, I'm not sure if they really like this or not, but limiting kids being suspended from school and providing alternatives. We also talked about direct primary care and providing alternatives for folks. So anyway, stay tuned because we're going to be talking about these topics from now until April 5th. But I do want to thank you again for joining us today on Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase on WNTW The Answer. I hope you'll join us again next week, Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m., as we strive to address issues that are important to you. And if you live in Chesterfield, Colonial Heights, or Amelia, I'm your state senator, and I will do whatever I can to help you. If you would like to receive notices of upcoming events, town halls, or weekly newsletters, I invite you to visit my website, amandachaseforsenate.com, and sign up. During session, I send a weekly update each Friday, and out of session, we send out a monthly newsletter. Or you can always join us each Thursday on our weekly town hall here at WNTW AM 820 The Answer on Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase.